Doris Day was adjusting her earpiece in the NBC studio when the host smiled at her with that practice television grin. "Doris, we're so excited to have you here to talk about your new TV show." Doris's smile froze on her face. Her new TV show? What TV show? "I'm sorry," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I think there's been some confusion." The host's grin widened. "Oh, don't be modest. The Doris Day Show is going to be wonderful. Tell us about it." In that moment, sitting under the hot studio lights with cameras rolling and millions watching, Doris Day discovered that her dead husband had secretly sold her into television slavery. "Now I'm going to tell you the story of the most devastating betrayal in Hollywood history. How Martin Melcher secretly destroyed Doris Day's life with a contract she never knew existed. And how America's sweetheart learned on live television that she was trapped in a nightmare she couldn't escape." It was April 1968, just 3 months after Martin Melcher's sudden death from a heart attack. Doris was still grieving the loss of her husband of 17 years when she received an invitation to appear on the Mike Douglas Show to discuss her upcoming projects. Doris thought it would be a simple interview about her recent films. She had no idea she was walking into an ambush that would shatter her world on national television. Martin Melcher had always handled Doris's business affairs. "Don't worry about contracts and money, honey," he would tell her. "That's man's work. You just focus on being beautiful and talented." For 17 years, Doris had trusted him completely. She signed whatever he put in front of her without reading it. She never asked questions about their finances. She believed her husband when he said everything was perfect, but everything was far from perfect. Unbeknownst to Doris, Martin had been making secret deals, forging her signature and committing her to projects she had never agreed to. The worst of these secret deals was a television contract with CBS that would trap Doris for 5 years in a weekly TV series she had never wanted to do. When Doris walked into that NBC studio in April 1968, she thought she was free to choose her own future. She had no idea that Martin had already chosen it for her from beyond the grave. The interview started normally. Mike Douglas asked about her recent films, her music career, her future plans. Doris was relaxed, charming, giving the kind of interview America expected from their sweetheart. Then Douglas dropped the bomb. "Now, Doris, let's talk about your exciting move to television. Tell us about the Doris Day Show." Doris's face went blank. "I'm sorry, what show?" Douglas laughed, thinking she was joking. "Come on, Doris, don't be coy. Your new CBS series, it's all over the trades." The color drained from Doris's face. "Mike, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have a television show." The studio fell silent. Douglas looked confused. The producers in the booth were frantically checking their notes. "Doris," Douglas said gently, "CBS announced it last week. The Doris Day Show, 5-year contract. You're signed to do 128 episodes." Doris felt the world tilt. "That's impossible. I never signed anything." But even as she said it, a terrible realization was creeping in. If Martin had signed other things without telling her, if he had been making deals behind her back. I need to make a phone call," Doris whispered. The interview ended abruptly. America watched as their beloved Doris Day walked off the set in confusion and growing horror. Backstage, Doris immediately called her lawyer, Jerome Rosenthal. Her hands were shaking as she dialed. "Jerry, please tell me this is a mistake. Please tell me I don't have a television show." There was a long silence on the other end. Then Rosenthal's voice, heavy with reluctance. "Doris, we need to talk. Can you come to my office right away?" Rosenthal's office was in Century City, a 30-minute drive that felt like 3 hours. Doris's mind was racing. How could Martin have done this? How could he have committed her to something so massive without telling her? When she arrived, Rosenthal had the contract spread across his desk. 5 years, 128 episodes, no escape clause, and there at the bottom of every page was her signature, except she had never signed them. "Martin forged my signature," Doris said, staring at the documents in disbelief. "We believe so," Rosenthal said carefully, "but proving forgery is difficult, especially now that Martin is dead." Doris finished. How convenient for him. The contract was ironclad. CBS had paid Martin a substantial advance against Doris's services. They had already announced the show. They had hired writers, producers, and crew. Backing out would mean lawsuit, financial ruin, and professional suicide. How much did he get paid for this? Doris asked. Rosenthal hesitated. $2 million. Where's the money? Another hesitation. We're still trying to figure that out. The money was gone. All of it. Martin had spent the advance and left Doris with the obligation to earn it back by working on a television show she despised. The next few weeks were a nightmare of legal meetings, script readings, and growing despair. Doris learned that the television contract was just the beginning. Martin had made numerous other commitments on her behalf, all designed to keep her working and earning money that he could spend. He had signed her to record albums she didn't want to make, committed her to personal appearances she had no interest in doing, and even agreed to endorsement deals without her knowledge. It's like he sold me into slavery, Doris told her friend, actress Mamie Van Doren. And now that he's dead, I can't even confront him about it. The cruelest part was that Martin had done it all while professing his love and devotion. Every night he came home and kissed her, telling her how much he loved her, while secretly betraying her trust in the most fundamental way possible. I thought he was protecting me from the business side, Doris said. Instead, he was protecting the business side from me. CBS was unsympathetic to Doris's plight. They had a contract, they had paid money, and they expected her to honor the agreement whether she had known about it or not. Miss Melcher, said CBS executive James Aubrey, your personal problems with your late husband are unfortunate, but they're not our concern. We have a show to produce. Doris's options were limited and all of them were terrible. She could fight the contract and face years of expensive litigation that she couldn't afford. She could declare bankruptcy and lose everything she had worked for her entire career. Or she could submit to the television show and spend the next 5 years of her life doing something she had never wanted to do. The decision was made for her when her accountant delivered the final blow. Martin had left her not just committed to unwanted projects, but deeply in debt. How much do I owe? Doris asked. Approximately $500,000. $500,000 in debt. Committed to 5 years of television she didn't want to do. Betrayed by the man she had loved and trusted above all others. Doris Day had hit rock bottom. The first day of filming the Doris Day Show was September 9th. Doris arrived on the CBS lot feeling like a prisoner reporting for her sentence. I kept thinking this was all a nightmare and I would wake up, she later recalled. But the cameras were real, the scripts were real, and the contract was very real. The irony was crushing. Here was America's sweetheart, known for her sunny optimism and infectious smile, forced to pretend to be happy while her world was falling apart. How do you smile when your heart is broken? Doris asked her makeup artist. How do you be cheerful when you feel like you're dying inside? But Doris was a professional. Whatever her personal feelings, she gave the show her best effort. She showed up on time, knew her lines, and delivered the performance CBS had paid for. The show was actually successful. It ran for 5 seasons, and made money for everyone involved, everyone except Doris, who saw most of her earnings go to pay off the debts Martin had left behind. I was working to pay for my own enslavement, she said years later. Every episode I filmed was another payment on the prison Martin had built around me. The psychological toll was enormous. Doris began suffering from anxiety attacks. She had trouble sleep. She started having panic attacks on set, terrified that there were other contracts, other commitments she didn't know about. Every day I wondered what else would be revealed, she said. What other betrayals were waiting to be discovered? Her relationship with men was shattered. If Martin, who had claimed to love her above all else, could betray her so completely, how could she ever trust anyone again? He didn't just steal my money and my freedom, Doris told her therapist. He stole my ability to trust. He stole my peace of mind. He stole my future. The full extent of Martin's betrayal became clear over the following years. He had forged her signature on dozens of documents. He had committed her to projects spanning decades. He had structured deals to benefit himself and his business associates at her expense. Most damaging of all, he had isolated her from her own business affairs, so completely that she was helpless to protect herself even when she began to suspect something was wrong. I was like a child, Doris reflected. A successful, wealthy, famous child who knew nothing about her own life. The television show finally ended in 1973. 5 long years after that devastating moment on the Mike Douglas show. Doris was 51 years old and felt like she had lost the best years of her career to a contract she had never agreed to. But the experience also taught her something valuable. She was stronger than she had ever known. Martin thought he was making me dependent on him, she said. Instead, he taught me that I could survive anything. If I could survive this betrayal, I could survive everything. After the show ended, Doris took control of her own career for the first time in her life. She learned to read contracts, manage her money, and make her own decisions. I swore I would never again sign anything I didn't understand, never again trust anyone with my future completely, and never again let someone else define my life. The betrayal also led to positive changes in the entertainment industry. Doris's experience highlighted the vulnerability of performers who trusted their personal and professional lives to the same person. New laws were passed requiring separate representation for major contracts. If my suffering helped protect other performers from the same fate, then maybe it was worth something, Doris said. Martin Melcher died in 1968. But the consequences of his betrayal followed Doris for the rest of her life. She never remarried, never again trusted anyone completely with her business affairs, and never got over the feeling that she had been a fool to love someone who could betray her so completely. People ask me if I forgave Martin, she said in one of her final interviews. I forgave him for his sake, because holding on to anger was poisoning me. But I never forgot the lesson. Love is not enough. Trust must be earned every day. And when someone shows you who they really are, believe. The television show that destroyed Doris Day's faith in love and trust, ironically became one of her most enduring legacies. The Doris Day Show introduced her to a new generation of fans and demonstrated her resilience in the face of overwhelming betrayal. But for Doris herself, it remained a symbol of the worst kind of violation, the betrayal of trust by someone who claimed to love her above all else. When Doris Day died in 2019, at age 97, she had spent the last 50 years of her life protecting herself from ever being that vulnerable again. Martin Melcher's secret deal had not just trapped her in a television show, it had trapped her in a lifetime of caution, suspicion, and emotional self-protection. The contract that forced her to smile for 5 years on television had stolen her ability to smile freely for the rest of her life. That was Martin Melcher's true legacy. Not the money he stole or the projects he committed her to, but the trust he destroyed and the innocence he took from America's sweetheart. The day Doris Day found out about her secret television show was the day America's sweetheart learned that love and trust are not the same thing, and that the people closest to you can inflict the deepest wounds. It was a lesson that would stay with her until her final breath.